Hello, beautiful people. There is something about Dr. Gabor Mate that brings out such inspiration in me to the point where I have to put my thoughts on video when I'm not camera ready. The last time I had a very vulnerable share was right after um, doing a sweat in my sauna bed and was, still in my sweat clothes, my sauna clothes, and all sweated up, but just really felt like it was after watching his documentary on trauma, childhood trauma. A lot of you know that's been my big path this year is really peeling back the trauma piece, right? Whether it be early childhood trauma or having a chronic disease trauma or being a hairstylist and working around chemicals for 15 years trauma. Mold causes trauma in the nervous system. So that's been a big theme for me this year. And so right now there's the trauma super conference going on, which I'm totally geeking out on. And watching Dr. Gabar talk about compassion. I remember my first um, like realization of my lack of compassion was shortly after my kid was born, and I was out at the Loveland or Fort Collins downtown library. I had taken my kid there. He was pretty young, and I we're outside and I'm watching this mother frantically like panic, screaming, my kid, I can't find my kid. Help me, help me." And a normal healthy person, which I witnessed, would have stopped and asked, yeah, look, what's he look like? Where did you last see him? They would have jumped into action. I jumped into judgment. Like, I was so angry and was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, lady? How could you lose your kid? Like, just this vile, toxic, angry, nothing like compassion crap came out in me. And I witnessed the grace of God. I witnessed this woman walk up to her and calm her down and say, jump into action. Where did you last see him? What did he look like? And I'm watching all of it, realizing there's something really wrong with me. Like, what is that in me that responded this way instead of responded that way? And so I actually walked up to her after everything had settled down and told her my realization, and she started talking to me about the grace of God and invited me to church. And I've had an off and on weird relationship with God my whole life. Um, Starting to come back into a practice and relationship with God, but it's still kind of sticky at times. So anywho, so that was like my first real realization of, because it's funny because I've always been a compassionate person, especially towards animals, to kids for the most part. I guess it's adults that I never had a lot of compassion for. But anywho, I've always had a big heart. I've always been a giver. I've always been an empath, right? It's always been very sensitive. Um, so the thought of me having issues with compassion never crossed my mind. But after watching him, and he talks only when compassion is present will people be allowed will people allow themselves to see the truth. And so, when I think back growing up, I was never shown compassion, right? I was shown that angry, suck it up, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why do you always got to be the center of attention? Oh, there's Heather goes, Heather again, just this toxic negativity instead of this like nurturing compassion, right? Which is kind of where you get taught, and I remember going through it again, like even more as an adult when I was going in Al-Anon, which is for people who have been affected by addicts, alcoholics. And I was brought up by addicts, alcoholics. I had married an alcoholic. It's always a big part of my life. I struggle with my own addictions here and there, but nothing compared to like the people that I surrounded myself with. And I remember going to like it was an open AA meeting with my Al-Anon sponsor. We were there to support her husband, and I remember listening to these alcoholics talk and share, and I remember being so fucking angry. Like, how dare you get to be happy? You don't deserve happiness. Look at the freaking havoc and wreck that you've caused people. Like, no, you don't get to be happy. You don't get to be. And so there was just another level of where I see compassion not showing up in my life. It also keeps me in this victim that I've worked on all year too. But anywho, I digress. So compassion. How are you showing compassion to the world? How are you showing compassion to yourself? How are you showing compassion to your kids? How are you showing, it's funny because I remember trying to teach this to my kid growing up, the bullies. I always was like, if they're treating you like that, can you imagine how they're talking to themselves and how they're being treated at home? Like, hurt people, right? And so at an energetic, like, thought level, I've always known this, but to put it into practice, it's something different. And it's interesting when you weren't given the template for that. Hopefully that makes sense. The other thing that I love that he was talking about is, like, he's like, when it comes to a calling, when you are being called to do what you do, or are you being driven? All too often I see in a lot of helping modalities, this, they call it a calling, but they act more like they're being driven. They're not taking care of themselves. They're not walking the walk. And I love that distinction that he put out there. And so also it's just another place for me to show compassion, because these folks obviously having some more, like, self-worth type issues, that they feel like that they're not done until they've put this stuff out into the world. And it might look like a gift to all of us, but a gift to what, right? At what point are they, they're burning themselves out, they're killing themselves out. It's sad. um, I don't have a whole lot of role models of folks who are putting out, amazing stuff, who aren't, I don't know, just the compassion piece, the compassion piece, the compassion piece. And so, yeah, so I'll have to remember to watch him next time when I'm not done working out or not done sweating. But I suppose it's okay to show it vulnerable, completely raw. It seems to add to it, right? Anywho, I don't know if any of that made sense. Take what you like, leave the rest. Stay tuned.